They said no mind could survive a shattered memory core. Yet something woke inside the alien woman that shouldn't exist at all. And the impossible part? A single human mechanic triggered it, without meaning to. If this happened to you, would you dare uncover what your own mind tried to erase? Tell me where you're watching from, subscribe to support the channel, and let's begin the story. The rain on Orpheon 9 wasn't water. It was acid mixed with industrial runoff, the kind that stripped paint off shuttles and made the air taste like burnt copper. Cal Weaver didn't mind. He'd been breathing it for 20 years. His workshop sat wedged between two exhaust towers in Sector 7, a maze of scrap metal and salvaged parts that somehow stayed warmer than most of the housing blocks. The sign above the door flickered, Boone and Darrow Tools. Neither Boone nor Darrow had existed for a decade, but Cal kept the name. Ghost deserved that much. He was elbow deep in a plasma regulator when the door hissed open. "We're closed," he muttered, not looking up. "Come back when the rain stops, so never." The footsteps didn't leave. They moved closer, careful and quiet. Cal wiped his hands on a rag that might have been white once and finally looked up. The woman standing in his doorway wasn't human. Blue skin, white hair cropped short, silver eyes with vertical pupils that caught the workshop's dim light like polished mirrors. Orini. He'd seen a few over the years, but never one who looked this tired. She held something small in both hands, cradled like it might shatter. "I need you to fix this," she said. Her voice was soft, but there was weight behind it, the kind that came from carrying something heavy for too long. Cal stood, knees cracking. 44 felt older on Orpheon 9. "I fix machines, not jewelry." "It's not jewelry." She stepped closer, and he saw her hands trembling. Just barely, but enough. "It's all I have left." He took the device. It was the size of his palm, crystalline and metallic at the same time, covered in patterns that shifted when he tilted it. Beautiful. Alien. Broken. What is it? A neural recorder. It stores memories. Memories. Cal turned it over. One side was cracked, exposing circuits that looked organic. "This looks more like a bomb than a memory box." "It's not a bomb. It's me." Something in the way she said it made him stop. He'd heard that tone before. In his own voice, late at night, when the workshop got too quiet and the past got too loud. "Name's Cal," he said. "Seren Tail." He set the device on his workbench next to the plasma regulator and a half-empty cup of coffee that had gone cold 3 hours ago. The recorder pulsed once under the overhead light, then went silent, almost like it was waiting. "I can try," Cal said, "but I've never worked on Orini tech. Might take time." "I have time." She looked around the workshop at the organized chaos of his life. "May I stay while you work?" Cal shrugged. "Suit yourself. Just don't touch anything. Last person who did lost a finger. Well, not lost. Found it later. But still." She almost smiled. Almost. He pulled up a stool and started examining the device. Behind him, Seren settled against the wall, watching. The rain drummed against the metal roof, and somewhere in the distance, a factory horn wailed. But Cal didn't know his next customer would change everything he thought he'd forgotten. And in 3 days, he'd wish he never touched that machine. The recorder pulsed again, faint, waiting. Somewhere in the city, deep in the towers of Halvern Industries, an alert flashed red, and someone started hunting. 3 days passed in the rhythm of work. Cal didn't sleep much. The recorder refused to follow any logic he knew. Its circuits weren't wired, they were grown. When he got frustrated, the metal warmed under his fingers. When he laughed at his own stupidity, the patterns inside glowed faint blue. "Your people make weird stuff," he said on the second morning, squinting through a magnification lens. Seren was sitting cross-legged on the floor, drinking the coffee he'd made. She'd tried to hide her reaction the first time, but Cal had seen it. The face of someone drinking battery acid mixed with regret. "Is this voluntary poison?" she'd asked. "It's called coffee. And yeah, Pretty much. Now she took small sips, like she was teaching herself to suffer correctly. "We don't make technology," she said. "We grow it, from thought and metal and time." That's the most hippie thing I've ever heard. And I once met a guy who tried to repair a fusion core with positive vibes. Did it work? He's mostly intact. She did smile then. Small, but real. Cal liked the quiet way they'd fallen into rhythm. She didn't hover or ask questions every 5 seconds. She just existed in his space, solid and present, like she'd always been there. Sometimes she'd hum, low and strange, a melody that made the recorder pulse in response. "You're doing that on purpose," he said once. "Doing what?" "The humming. It likes it." She stopped, eyes widening. "You notice that?" "I notice everything. Comes with the job. People ignore machines until they break. I listen before they do." On the third night, the weirdness started. Cal was alone, Serene having left to find food. He just managed to isolate the recorder's core when every tool on his workbench activated at once. Welding, torch flaring, drill spinning, diagnostic screen flashing gibberish. What the hell? He killed the power. Everything shut down. Then the radio turned on. Static, then voices, dozens of them, overlapping, speaking languages he didn't know. One voice cut through the rest, sharp and desperate, shouting something that sounded like a warning. Cal pulled the plug. Silence. The recorder sat on the bench, glowing brighter than before. When Serene returned, she found him staring at it. "It's waking up," she said quietly. "Machines don't wake up. This one does. It's trying to reconnect, to find what it lost." "Which is?" She didn't answer, just moved to the bench and placed her hand near the recorder, not touching it. The glow intensified, and for a moment, Cal saw images flicker in the light. A city burning, children running, someone screaming. Serene yanked her hand back, breathing hard. "You okay?" "It's not just my memories in there," she whispered. "It's everyone who was there." "Where? The evacuation, when my world burned?" Cal wanted to ask more, but something stopped him. The way she looked at the recorder, like it was a door she wasn't ready to open. That night, he dreamed. Fire and smoke, soldiers shouting. A little girl with silver eyes crying in a language he didn't understand. He was younger in the dream, wearing gear he didn't recognize, pulling children onto a transport. The girl reached for him, and he grabbed her hand. Then nothing. He woke up gasping, covered in sweat. Serene was sitting in the corner watching him. "You dreamed about my world," she said. It wasn't a question. "How do you know?" "Because you were there." Cal didn't believe her. Couldn't. He'd never been to an Orini world, never been a soldier. He fixed things and tried not to remember the things he couldn't fix, like his wife, his son, the factory accident that took them both. But the dream felt real. The weight of the child in his arms, the smell of smoke, the sound of his own voice shouting coordinates he shouldn't know. "I think your device is broken in a different way," he said, standing. "It's leaking memories that aren't real. Or it's showing you memories you forgot." Before he could respond, the lights went out. All of them. Across 12 city blocks, according to the emergency klaxon that started wailing. Serene was on her feet instantly. "They found me." "Who?" "Halvern Industries. They've been hunting me since I arrived." She grabbed the recorder, stuffing it into a bag slung across her shoulder. "They think this contains consciousness maps. Forbidden tech. They'll kill us both to get it." Wait. Nobody said anything about killing." "I'm saying it now. Move." The door exploded inward, not slowly, not with warning, just sudden violence and smoke. Cal grabbed his toolkit out of pure instinct, the kind of stupid human reflex that made him bring a wrench to a gunfight. They ran. Orpheon 9's underground was a nightmare of tunnels and maintenance corridors, the skeleton beneath the city's industrial skin. Cal knew it better than most. Had to, when your workshop sat in the veins of the place. Seren followed close, her breathing steady despite the pace. Behind them, footsteps, lots of them. Question, Cal gasped. Why exactly is your memory box a galactic crime? Because it doesn't just store memories, it shares them, consciousness across species. They think it could rewrite loyalty, make soldiers remember compassion. That's illegal? Halvern made it illegal after the war. They profit from forgetting. They turned a corner and Cal yanked her into a side passage, pressing against the wall. Soldiers rushed past, armor clanking, rifles charged and ready. Professional. Corporate. The kind who followed orders and didn't ask questions. When the footsteps faded, Cal let out a breath. If I die, who's gonna fix your refrigerator? Seren stared at him, then laughed. Actually laughed. It was short and surprised, like she'd forgotten how. You make jokes when you're afraid. It's called coping. You should try it. My people deleted humor. Too inefficient. And how's that working out? She looked at him, and something in her silver eyes softened. Not well. They moved deeper into the tunnels. Cal led them through passages marked with graffiti, past junctions that smelled like oil and ozone. He'd almost gotten them to an old exit near the scrapyards when the recorder activated on its own. Light burst from Seren's bag, projecting images onto the tunnel walls. A city, families, then fire, soldiers firing into crowds, children screaming. And through it all, one voice kept repeating something in Irrational. Seren collapsed, hands over her ears. Make it stop. Cal grabbed the recorder. It burned his hands, but he held on, trying to find an off switch that didn't exist. The images shifted. Now he saw himself. Younger, in uniform, pulling Irrational children onto a transport while the world burned around them. One of the children was Seren. They burned everything, she whispered, including us. The projection cut out. The recorder went dark, and in the sudden silence, Cal heard it. More footsteps. Closer. They were surrounded. They made it to an abandoned comm tower on the city's edge. Barely. Cal's shoulder ached where he'd taken a glancing hit. Nothing serious, but enough to remind him he was very breakable. Serene had blood on her temple from a fall. Blue against blue skin. The soldiers were closing in. Cal could hear them setting up a perimeter. Professional, patient. They had time. He pulled the recorder from Seren's bag. 3 days of work, and he'd finally mapped its core structure. The crack was the key. It wasn't damage. It was a safeguard. Someone had broken it on purpose to keep it from activating. I can fix it, he said. Seren looked at him, silver eyes wide. If you do, I'll remember. Everything. And I don't know if I want to. Why not? Because I survived by forgetting. If I remember who I was, I might not be able to live with who I became. Cal understood that. He'd spent 20 years not thinking about the transport accident, about hearing the alarms too late, about his wife's last message on the comm, about finding his son's toy in the wreckage. Some things stayed buried for a reason. Or maybe, he said quietly, you'll just remember who you really are. She reached for the recorder. Her hand trembled. Outside, someone shouted orders. They had minutes, maybe less. If this thing can project memories, Cal said, can it transmit them to other devices? Yes, that's why they're hunting it. Mass consciousness sharing, one memory touching thousands. Then we don't run, we broadcast. Broadcast what? The truth, whatever's in there. Let the whole city see. Seren stared at him, then nodded. Cal pulled out every tool he had, working faster than he'd ever worked. Bypass the safeties, reroute the core, connect to the tower's transmitter. His hands moved on instinct, muscle memory from decades of making broken things whole. The recorder pulsed, once, twice, then activated. Images exploded into the air around them, not projections, memories, real and raw and unfiltered. Cal saw himself, 20 years younger, different uniform, A face he'd forgotten he used to have. He was on a battlefield, pulling Orani children toward a transport while plasma fire screamed overhead. He was shouting at someone, coordinates, evacuation codes, things he shouldn't know. One child clung to his armor, silver eyes, white hair, terrified. He lifted her into the transport, whispered something he couldn't hear now. She reached back for him and he squeezed her small hand. Then the memory cut. Forcibly, surgically. He felt it like a blade in his mind. The next memory was darkness. Voices telling him to forget. That the evacuation never happened. That saving enemy children was treason. That his memories would be adjusted for his own good. Halvorn Industries. They'd erased him, rewritten his past, made him forget the best thing he'd ever done. Seren was watching the same memories, tears streaming down her face. "You saved me," she whispered. "You saved us all, and they made you forget." The door burst open. Soldiers poured in, weapons raised. Cal grabbed the transmitter. The recorder flared bright, connecting. "Do it," he said. Seren placed her hands on the device, closed her eyes, and screamed. The memory exploded outward, through the tower, through the city's network, through every screen, every comm device, every neural link in Orpheon 9. Thousands of people stopped. They saw a human soldier saving children. They saw compassion across species. They saw what Halvorn had tried to erase. The soldiers in the room lowered their weapons. One dropped to his knees. "I remember now," he whispered. "I remember what they made us forget." The system didn't crash from an attack. It crashed from feeling. Halvorn's network seized, unable to process the contradiction. You couldn't erase what people felt. You couldn't delete what they'd done for each other. Cal's voice echoed across the city, amplified by the recorder. "You can delete files. You can't delete what we meant to each other. That's humanity. That's what keeps us alive." Seren collapsed. Cal caught her, and they fell together, exhausted. Her silver eyes met his. "You saved me twice now, and you taught me how to remember." 6 months later, the workshop looked different, bigger, cleaner, but not too clean. Cal wouldn't have recognized himself if he didn't look in mirrors anymore, which he tried not to. The new sign read, "Weaver and Kale Repairs." Seren was at the workbench teaching a young Orini apprentice how to calibrate a neural interface. The kid was maybe 16, one of the survivors from the evacuation Cal had forgotten. She'd found him after the broadcast, said she wanted to learn from the human who remembered. Cal was finishing a coffee. Real coffee, not the industrial sludge he used to drink. Serene had insisted. "You deserve better poison," she'd said. "Character growth, I hate it." The recorder sat on the shelf above the workbench, dark now, quiet. Cal had offered to put it somewhere safe, somewhere protected. Serene had just smiled and placed it between a hydro spanner and a box of miscellaneous bolts. "It belongs with the tools," she'd said, "between what was broken and what still works." Halvorn Industries had collapsed 3 months after the broadcast. Not violently, not dramatically, just slowly, as workers remembered what they'd been made to forget. As they realized the corporation had profited from their amnesia, the trials were still ongoing. Cal didn't watch them. He'd said his piece, testified once, then went back to fixing things. Some things you couldn't fix with testimony. The kid left for the day, waving goodbye. Serene locked the door and turned to Cal. "I've been thinking," she said. "Dangerous. About my people. About yours. We created technology to erase pain, to forget trauma, to move forward by leaving everything behind. And we're stubborn idiots who carry everything with us. War, loss, coffee addiction. Yes, but you're alive because of it. Really alive, not just existing." Cal set down his cup. "You sound like you're going somewhere with this." "I am. I've been contacted by other Orini, ones who want to remember, who want to learn the human way, carrying the weight instead of deleting it. That's a heavy curriculum. Will you help me teach them?" Cal looked at her. Really looked. The exhaustion was still there. but something else had grown alongside it. Hope, maybe, or just the stubborn refusal to stop existing. "I'm a mechanic," he said, "not a therapist. You're someone who knows how to fix what's broken without throwing away the pieces. That's what we need." He thought about his wife, his son, the 20 years he'd spent trying to forget them by fixing other people's machines. How the pain had never really left, just shifted, changed shape, became part of him. Remembering hurt, but forgetting had hurt worse. "Yeah," he said. "I'll help." Seren smiled. Then moved to the old radio, the one Cal had salvaged from the scrapyard decades ago. She turned it on. Static crackled, then cleared. Children's laughter. An old recording from before the war. From when both their worlds still believed in happy endings. They stood there listening, not saying anything, not needing to. The rain started outside, acid and runoff and copper taste, the same rain that had been falling for 20 years. But somehow it sounded different now, like maybe it was washing something away, or maybe just making room for something new. Cal looked at the recorder on the shelf. Unit 1111, the serial number read. Same as the watch he'd worn during the evacuation? Coincidence, maybe, or maybe some memories just refused to stay buried. "You know what's funny?" he said. "What?" "You came here to fix a machine, but I think you fixed something else entirely." Seren looked at him. "What did I fix? Me? Us? This whole stupid city of people who forgot how to feel? I didn't do that alone." "No, you didn't." Outside, somewhere in Orphean 9, a factory horn wailed. Shift change. People going home. People remembering they had homes to go to. That they had names that mattered. Stories that deserved to be told. The galaxy had tried to teach humanity that forgetting was evolution. That moving forward meant leaving the past behind. That pain was inefficient and memory was a burden. But humans had always been stubborn. They remembered. They carried their dead. They told stories about people who'd never come home. They fixed broken things not because it made sense, but because some things deserved to keep existing. And sometimes, when they were very lucky, what they fixed ended up fixing them back. The recorder pulsed. Once. Soft and content. Then went quiet. Seren reached out and took Cal's hand. He didn't pull away. They stood there, two survivors who'd found each other across species and memory and time, who'd learned that remembering, even when it hurt, was what made them real. The rain continued, but inside the workshop, it was warm. And for the first time in 20 years, Cal Weaver felt something he'd thought was lost forever. He felt like he was home. In the end, Cal and Seren learned what every stubborn species in the galaxy eventually discovers. Memory isn't a burden. It's the blueprint of who we dare to become. Forgetting may keep you alive, but remembering is what makes life worth the trouble. And sometimes the thing we fear most is the only thing that sets us free. So let me ask you, what pieces of yourself have you tried to erase just to keep going? And which memories, if you finally face them, might change the way you walk through the world? How much of who you are exists because someone, somewhere chose compassion when it would have been easier to shut down? If you made it this far, write "remember" in the comments so I know you stayed with Cal and Seren until the last rain fell. Tell me your city, because across planets or across neighborhoods, this is all one shared story. And if you felt even a spark of humanity in this tale, hit subscribe, drop a like, hype the channel, share it with someone who might need it today, and check the next video waiting in the end screen. After all, in a universe this big, remembering each other might be the bravest thing we do.